Hello everyone, and welcome to the GTAP Tech Talk webinar on resolving common Security Center video issues. My name is Derek Schaefer. I am an e-content specialist with Genetec's Technical Training Department, and I'll be your host for the webinar. We also have some members of the Genetec Technical Assistance Center standing by who are assisting with the webinar questions and answers today. First of all, we have Eric Goodsuz with us, who is a technical support engineer and video expert. And we also have Scott McFall with us to help with questions as well. Scott is an e-content specialist with the GTAC. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can just type them in the question box of the GoToWebinar console, and one of us will get back to you with an answer as soon as we can. If there's something we need to verify to answer your question, we'll make a note of it and get back to you via email as soon as we have the information for you. All the questions and answers from the webinar will be posted on the GTAC Tech Talk section of the Genetec Technical Assistance Portal forums about a day or two after the webinar is finished. If you have any additional questions or comments on the webinar or the GTAC Tech Talk webinar series in general, you can post them in the GTAP forum as well. Now, all the previous webinars have been recorded, and the videos can be found by going to the Tools section and then Videos, and go to the GTAC Tech Talk section on the left here. Now there's two ways that you can watch these. Either streaming in a browser window by clicking on this icon here, or you can download a zipped Windows media file by clicking on the second icon right here. If you'd like to receive emails concerning the latest additions to the Genetec Technical Assistance Portal, you can log in, go to the My Account section, and click on Email and Notifications. And then below, you can change the notification section right here. Now to put a checkbox on a subject below, the frequency will have to be set to daily or weekly. If it's set to never, the options will be grayed out and not selectable. You can also edit your subscription to our 2 Genetec newsletters in the Email Subscription section from the same page. If you've made any changes, don't forget to hit the Submit button on the bottom to make sure that it gets saved. Okay, so since the webinar today is all about troubleshooting and resolving common issues, the structure of the presentation is based on the issues we're going to cover. So some of these will be covered in more detail. Some are brief subjects that we get questions on that just need a few tips to resolve. So starting off, we're going to look at what you can do if you get a waiting for signal message when trying to view a camera or get no live video playback at all. In this case, we're assuming the unit is online and the problem only concerns the camera. If the unit is dropping offline as well, we'll take a look at what we can do in the second topic. We'll take a look at the common video playback issues in the section after that, and then take a look at how any video quality problems in live or recorded video can be addressed. Occasionally, we'll see a few camera issues that are related to configuration settings, namely with the PTZ and the input use, which we'll cover briefly. After that, we have a few tips when having problems adding or removing units from the system. And the last 2 sections are related to cameras not recording or when we're getting gaps in the video, and some tips on motion detection if it's not behaving as you'd like. Now, before we get started looking at the various video issues we might see in Security Center and how to troubleshoot them, I'd like to take a minute to go over some general troubleshooting that applies to many cases, as well as some useful information to gather when looking at the problem at hand. So first off, you'll need to make sure the unit is on the supported device list, which really applies to any version of Omnicast or Security Center that you're using. You can find that information either through the supported hardware document in the document subsection of the GTAP tools, or the supported devices subsection of the tools section on the GTAP as well. You can search based on the product, the release, the manufacturer, or you can just search for the unit name up here. If the unit is not on the list, it means that it has not been tested by ourselves or by one of our technology partners, and is not a recommended unit that we can offer support for. Now, along the same lines, take a look at the firmware we have listed for the unit in the supported device list. You can see it by clicking on the unit name. This is going to pop up a list of the various firmwares here, and basically the versions that have been tested on the unit and should work well with the Genetec software. Now, in some cases we receive advanced releases of units for testing, and the firmware included is a beta version that is not publicly available. If the firmware is distributable and we have it on hand, we'll have a link to it in the download column here. If you don't see a link in the download column or no firmware is listed, such as the case where the unit's been tested by one of our technology partners or supported by design, you can verify the firmware version or download a copy of the firmware by contacting the manufacturer. Just mention the name of the software you're using as well as the version. Now, when doing basic troubleshooting, the first thing to look at is where the problem is happening, and compare that to other entities of the same type on the system. For example, if you're unable to see live video, is it only on one workstation, or are all workstations experiencing the same problem? Is it only one camera that can't be viewed on that workstation, or is it all the cameras? If it is only one entity, most likely the problem concerns the entity itself, but if it's all or multiple entities, it may be related to the entity that they are connected to. So if there is a problem with only one entity, you can check if there's other entities of the same type or model on the system. If so, a good step would be to compare the configuration between the working entity and the non-functional entity. Okay, so another important detail is the video flow of the type of network that's being used here. So are the switches configured to handle multicast traffic and you have enough multicast groups, or is the traffic only going to be handled in unicast? As you can see from the diagram here, unicast traffic can consume a greater amount of bandwidth, and you can expect different results and redirection scenarios depending on the way the network is set up, both physically and in Security Center. If you're having a problem connecting to a camera or getting video from it, a good first step would be try to ping the camera and try to get to the unit's web page. To ping the unit, open a command prompt and then type ping and the IP address of the unit. If you cannot reach the unit from the workstation or the ping times out, basically try the same thing from the server running the archiver role that's controlling the unit. To get to the web page, open an internet browser like Internet Explorer or Chrome and type the IP address of the unit in the URL field. If you need to see what the IP address of the unit is, you can open the config tool, start a video task, click on the unit the camera is connected to, and take a look in the properties. Another important step in any case is to look at the system and make sure it's not overloaded. So you can take a look at the CPU usage on the various machines, such as the workstations, the expansion servers, and especially those with the archiver roles running, and any directory servers that are being used as well. You can also take a look at the logs on the servers to make sure we aren't seeing any errors, such as archiving queue full. The network throughput must also be considered to make sure there's no drop packets and all the information can get to where it wants to go. Okay, the first issue we're going to take a look at today is where we're getting a waiting for signal message on the tile, or no live video is showing up at all. To see how we can fix the problem, we have to understand how the video is getting through the network. The key network points we have are the workstation running the security desk, the video unit itself, the archiver the video unit is assigned to, and any redirection servers we have along the way. So in this diagram, we could actually have other redirectors between the workstation and the archiver. Now, all archivers also have a redirector running on them, and the flow of the data is controlled by the media router. In a unicast environment, the video goes from the camera or video unit to the archiver through as many redirectors as it takes to get the video to the workstation, and then it's displayed by a security desk. This process is simplified when using a network with multicast compatible hardware that has been properly configured to handle multicast traffic. In that case, the video stream that comes from the unit can go directly to the workstation and to the archiver as well. If we see a break at any one of these points, the security desk will not be able to view video, but the video may be getting through to some other component on the system, like the archiver here. Now, to find out where there might be a break, we can take a look at the Stream Diagnostic tool from within the security desk. The easiest way to access it is by pressing Ctrl, Shift, and D. Each stepping stone along the network path will be represented with an analysis of the incoming and outgoing traffic. For example, if the workstation is not seeing video, the media player step might report a message such as reception problem since no data is received from the network. Now, one quick thing I'd like to mention is the difference between seeing a transmission lost message and the signal lost error in the archiver logs. So basically, our transmission lost means the archiver hasn't received video packets from the unit within the last 5 seconds, whereas down here the signal loss means that the unit is not receiving video from the analog camera. Now, depending on the unit, the ports on an encoder may still show as online even if the analog camera is disconnected. So, what can we do to get our video back or discover where the problem is? The first thing we want to do is check if the unit is read as well as the camera. If it is, and we can't ping or get to the unit's web page, we may have a physical break in the network going from the unit to the archiver. Also related to the network, we can try setting a different connection type under the camera's network settings. It's possible that the video unit or the network do not support the type of connection we're telling the unit to make. So for example, if you have a connection type set to multicast and are not getting video, try using unicast UDP or unicast TCP. If the video comes through, then you know something is either blocking the multicast traffic on the network or the multicast actual type is not supported on the video unit. Now, a good test would be to see if the archiver is getting video from the camera. If the camera is set to record on motion, you can try to set it to continuous just to be sure it is recording, and then look for video in the video archives and see if anything is being recorded. If there is recorded video, you know the connection between the unit and the archiver is okay, and the problem is the redirection between the workstation and the archiver or the unit. If the archiver server has a video card that can handle video playback, you can also try to view video from that machine to verify the connection. Now, one common problem we see quite a bit is where the firewall on the server, workstation, or other network component is blocking the video from getting through. You may have to open the ports in use and make exceptions for the Genetec applications to be able to get through. We have a knowledge base article number 660, which has a list of ports that have to be open for communication. This is just a small sample of the knowledge base article. There's a lot more ports depending on the actual role that we're setting it up for. Now, we spoke about network redirection, and checking the network view is important as well. The first thing you want to make sure is that we have the correct capabilities that are set up here for each network, and as well take a look at the routes down here as well, and make sure that each endpoint has the correct capability set up between it. If that's not set up correctly, then the video may not be able to pass through in the format that we want to send it. If you have the video units on a different network than the servers, there's a few settings that we'll want to check. The first thing to check is the network card configuration in Windows. To get to the network configuration settings quickly, just run ncpa.cpl. From there, go into the Advanced menu, which you may have to hit the Alt key to bring up, and go into the Advanced Settings. The NIC that your servers are on should be on the top of the list here. and the NIC for the video units should be the second one on the list. If there are any other NICs on the system and they're not used, those can be disabled as well. Now, in general, if your servers and video units are all connecting on one network, then make sure the NIC used is on the top of the list. For the servers, we'll want to make sure that they can see both of the networks. There are three places where we want to make sure the network card is set to any. In the server section of the server admin, right down here in the resources tab of any archiver roles that we have running, and as well we want to check the resources section of the media router role. To see this network card setting here, you're going to have to hit the plus on the wrench to see the advanced settings. The next thing we want to do is to make sure the redirectors are using the network card connected to the video network. So to do this, go to the media router role properties and double click on each server in the redirectors list. In the redirector configuration window that pops up, make sure the multicast interface is set to the second NIC. Now the last step we want to do is to make sure the public address is configured for the server. So in the network view that we have here, click on the server in the tree and go to the Properties tab. Make sure the public address is switched to on, and in the field below we need to have the name of the server as it appears in our network tree right here. Now in case that doesn't do it, you're still having some issues there, you may want to edit the host file on the workstations found under C, Windows, System32, Drivers, and etc. or etc. From there you want to add the IP address of the server with the name that we entered in the public address field. Now you're also going to want to make sure that this is done on each workstation that's running the security desk. Since we're on the topic of the workstation, if you can narrow the problem down to the connection going to the workstation, we can try various connections for the workstation as well. Now to do this, go to the security desk home screen, open the options, and from the general options you can set the network to specific and choose which network to set it to. If you do make any changes here, you're going to need to restart the security desk before it will take effect. The next troubleshooting issue we're going to take a look at is if the units are dropping offline. You'll see this if the cameras go red in the tree and the units are red in the video task as well. Now this problem may occur randomly, which is harder to troubleshoot, but there's still steps we can do to fix or locate the problem. As we mentioned in our general troubleshooting, see if you can ping the unit and get to its web page. You'll also want to check if there's video archives for that camera as well. We may see the unit offline, but it may still be actually recording. In this kind of situation, the archiver is not reconnecting to the unit, but the unit is still operational. If this is the first time that this has happened, you can just try to restart the unit. When it comes back up, it's going to try to reestablish the connection to the archiver. If the connection was dropped on the archiver side, it'll probably see the reconnection attempt and regain communication with the unit. If the unit is not on the supported list or on the right firmware, you may also see this kind of behavior where the archiver loses the connection to the unit. Another thing to try is to restart the archiver role this unit has been assigned to. Just bear in mind that this will affect the other cameras which are connecting to the archiver, so it might be something you want to schedule for a non-critical time. You'll also see this kind of problem if you're having network issues between the archiver and the unit. Take a look at the archiver logs and look for anything indicating a network issue, such as RTP packet loss or a transmission loss like we have right here. If the archiver is seeing too many transaction timeouts from the unit, it's going to mark the unit as offline and basically stop communicating with it. Now to reduce the network traffic from the unit, you may have to reduce the quality, the resolution, or the frame rate associated with the unit until the network bandwidth problem can be addressed. If you're seeing a lot of broadcast traffic on the network, this may also cause a similar issue. Multicast is always preferred as it reduces the amount of network traffic. We've talked about what to do when you can't see live video. Now we're going to take a look at what you can do if the problem is replaying archived video. The first thing you want to check is that you can view the live video from the same workstation. So if not, it might be a network issue somewhere between the actual security desk or the workstation and the archiver itself. Now, in case you're able to see the database entry but are getting a message saying no recorded video when trying to view the footage, try to play the video from the same camera at other times or video from other cameras on the same archiver. Basically, archiving is a two-part process whereby the video itself is recorded to the drive and the record of the video is stored in the archiver database. So if the actual video file is deleted from the drive outside of the Security Center software, the database entry for that particular video record is still going to remain there. The best course of action here would be to take a look on the drive through Windows and see if the G64 file that it's referencing is still there. You can see which path the archiver is recording to by going to the Resources tab of the archiver and look under the disk base path. Now, when the problem is isolated to a specific camera or group of cameras, but all video files are not viewable, make sure the device and the firmware are supported. If it's all video from a specific archiver that's not viewable, it's possible that the workstation is having a network problem reaching the server. You can try from a different workstation and see if the problem remains. Possible culprits in this case are the network ports being blocked by a firewall or other protection program. Another good thing to check in this case is to load the security desk on the archiver itself and see if it can view the video files. This takes the network out of the picture basically, unless the storage device is on the network, and you can tell if the problem is local to the archiver itself, such as a database issue. Now, one of the problems you may run into sometimes is related to the quality of the video recorded or being displayed. In these cases, the video is being displayed in the tile, but you're seeing problems such as choppy video, waterfalls like this, odd colored blocks covering part of the image, or ghosted images where there's movement. Now, the first thing to check is the source of the problem. If you're seeing the distortion in the live video, check the archive video for that camera as well. If you're seeing it in both, the problem is likely going to be the video getting to the archiver. If it's on the live video only, you know there's something going wrong between the archiver and the workstation. Now, to check if the problem is occurring on the network or if it's a video issue on the workstation, you can try to change the stream to use TCP. Now, this is a more network intensive process, but if there are any packets dropped, they will be sent again and the correct image will be displayed. So an example here, we were using unicast UDP. We changed the stream type to unicast TCP. So if we're still getting distorted video, we know there's a problem on the workstation since the error correction is going on. If we're getting a clean video image after that, we know the error correction is correcting the problem on the network, and we know that it lies somewhere out here. Now, related to this, take a look in the archiver logs to see if there are any RTP packets lost messages, which means that not all the information is getting through and the full image is not being displayed. This can indicate a network problem, such as insufficient bandwidth or a bad connection. You can also look for lost RTP packets by going to the Config tool, open a video task, click on the camera, and click on the Live Video button on the bottom. You can view the diagnostic information for the stream from here as well. Now, from the security desk, we can see the same thing. Basically going to the tile that has the camera loaded and hit Control-Shift-A for the quick analysis. Or, like we mentioned, if you want to see the full stream diagnosis, you can hit Control-Shift-D. In cases where the flow of information is too much for the available bandwidth and we're getting packets dropped, a possible solution is to lower the data by dropping the frame rate or the video resolution. We can also try a different video protocol as well. So if we're using MJPEG, it's easy on the unit and the workstation for encoding and decoding, but it's much heavier on the network. Using H.264 takes more processing power to encode and decode, but it's much lighter on the network bandwidth. If the problem is only on the workstation, try viewing the camera that's having difficulties just by itself. So if it's okay, the problem may be the decoding or video processing capacity of the workstation. Again, you can try to lower the frame rate and resolution to help with this. You'll also want to take a look at the task manager and see if the CPU is being overworked. If you're seeing it constantly over 60%, then you could see some issues there. Now, one last thing we can try in case we're getting the RTP packet loss issue is to enable the AV codec error recognition feature. To be able to enable this in Security Center, you're going to be on version 5.1, Service Release 1, and you're going to need hotfix 69272 or later installed. On the client, make sure you have the client applications closed before making any changes. Then you're going to want to go to the Genetec Security Center 5.1 folder, which is located in the Program Files or the Program Files x86 folder. From there we go into the Configuration Files folder and open the general settings.gconfig file. Now if the file doesn't exist, create it and put the text that's listed right here in there. This can be copied from Knowledge Base article number 875. If you already do have the file there, take a look for the configuration section, like we have right here, the header, and then just add this line right here. Now, once you save the file and exit the editor, you can bring your client applications back up. And if you're still having issues, you can try to go back in and change the value here, the error recognition level value. You can try anything between 1 and 4 and see if that helps as well. Alright, so just as a quick topic, let's have a look at a couple of camera configuration issues. First, we'll have a look at what you can check in the configuration if you have a problem with the PTZ, such as if it won't move or it won't stop moving. So the first thing to consider when a PTZ camera is not moving is the type of input device or method we're using to try to move the PTZ. If you're using an analog keyboard or joystick, try to move the PTZ using the in-tile or the dashboard controls with the mouse. If the mouse works and the PTZ moves, then you know the wiring and everything is correct for the PTZ, but there's a communication problem with the keyboard or the joystick. You can check the settings in the peripheral section of the options in the security desk and the connection method for the keyboard or the joystick. It could also be a wiring issue or a problem with the dip switch settings. We can also test the analog keyboard or joystick with another PTZ camera to see if there's movement, if you've got one available. Now if the PTZ unit that you're trying to move supports presets, and we have some of them set up like we have here, you can try those as well. If these work, at least we know the command and control communication is working between the archiver and the PTZ. In the case where the PTZ is constantly moving, try to reset the physical unit or do a reboot from the security center. If it was stuck receiving a command, this should reset the connection and return it to a normal state. In both cases, if the PTZ will not move from any security center input, we're going to want to check the PTZ settings, such as the protocol. If we're connecting an analog PTZ to an encoder, we need to make sure the correct serial port is selected, as well as the PTZ address. Take a look at the serial port settings on the unit from the Peripherals tab to make sure they match what is set on the PTZ. We should also verify the firmware on the unit, as incorrect firmware might cause problems like this as well. Now, if any one of these is not set to a compatible setting or not configured the same way as the unit, the command sent by the security desk will not be understood by the PTZ and will be ignored. Okay, I'd like to talk about the configuration of inputs on the units as well. So if you have an input connected to a camera, such as for a manual recording button like we have set up here, but the action never starts when the button is pressed, there's a few things that we can check. Now the data is being sent as a TCP packet, so the first thing to check if there is if there are any firewalls on the system that may be blocking this TCP communication. Antivirus software may see this as an intrusion and may block the incoming data as well. So just try to turn off the firewalls and antivirus software, at least temporarily, and see if that resolves the issue. Now if the packet is getting through, you should see the event coming up in the archiver logs or in the security desk events if the zone has been assigned, if the zone that it's been assigned to is being monitored. Now if you're not seeing the events that have been assigned to the active or normal state in the zone, there's no way the action will take place. Now we can usually test this through the unit's web page as well. This is a good way to check if the state change is taking place. So that is, if the unit is going from open to closed or vice versa. When you log into the unit's web page, and this is very much dependent on the particular unit that you've got the button connected to as well, you might see a section where you can trigger the event manually and then see if that comes in through the security desk, or check the live status of the unit input, really again depending on the model that you're using. So let's have a look at anything else we can do if we're or anything we can do if we're unable to add or remove units from the system. If you're unable to add a unit to the system, you'll probably get some messages to the reason why, such as a timeout or a unit not discovered message. Make sure you can ping the unit and get to the web page as usual, particularly when you see the timeout message. This basically means Security Center was unable to contact the unit within a set time period. If you see a message about the credentials not being valid, this is the username and password being used to log into the unit. Make sure you're using the right account and these credentials work when trying to log into the web page. If the password is lost, take a look at the manual for a way to physically perform a factory reset on the camera to restore all the defaults, including the password. Other things that may cause problems are the wrong model chosen from the drop-down list, the wrong port that's being used, or if the unit already exists on the system. With auto-discover units, we have some kind of discovery or VSIP port that needs to be set. So if you don't have the same port set on the camera and on the archiver extension, it won't be able to find the unit, as the archiver will only be looking at the specific ports that it has set up in the extensions that have been added. So an example here, we've got ports 1800 and 1810 set up in two extensions, but if the unit's on port 1820, then it's not going to go looking on port 1820 for the unit. One last thing to consider is the licenses on the system. You'll need to make sure you have enough camera licenses to be able to handle the new units. Now to find this out, you go to the Home menu, click on About, and then click on the Omnicast tab here. You're going to see the number of cameras listed, with a number indicating how many are on the system, which is the first number here, and how many do we have in the license itself. So in this case, we've got 2 on the system and a total camera capacity of 1,625. So if you see that they're at the same number, then you obviously won't be able to add the camera to the system. Now, in case you're having problems removing the units, there's a few things that we can try. If it's an auto-discover unit, it's going to continually be rediscovered by the system if the unit is on, unless the unit's on a different port than the extension. So we can usually go to the web page or telnet to the unit to set it up. Once we change the port, we should be able to remove the unit and it's going to stay removed. Otherwise, we're going to go in this vicious circle here where we still have both on the same port, and as soon as you delete it, it's going to look out and it's going to see the unit on there and it's going to rediscover it right away. Now, when considering units that are not auto-discover, if they won't be removed from the archiver for some reason, then just try to deactivate the archiver role, try to delete the unit again, and then try activating the role once more. Okay, our next subject concerns problems with recording, such as missing archives or gaps in the recording times. So if the video hasn't been recorded, or you're seeing gaps like we mentioned, when it should be one constant video stream, there's a lot of things that we can look into. Now, the most obvious thing is to check that the unit has been set to record and that it has a valid schedule here. If the unit is inheriting the values from the archiver, take a look at other units on the same archiver to see if they're recording as well. Next, take a look at the recording mode. We can have it set to record manually, which is only when somebody clicks on the record button or a record command is set, or on motion or continuously. If the recording must be an action triggered by an event, it may be a problem with the event being sent by the system. Now, this includes motion recording, as we need to see a valid motion on event to start recording. To test if this is the case, temporarily set the recording to continuous and see if it'll start recording. If it does, you're going to see the recording light in the dashboard and the in-tile controls. It's going to turn red, and you're going to see the lock next to it as well. And the live indicator will turn red down here in the tile as well. If it's a problem with the motion detection, we're going to take a look at a few common things to verify in the settings in the next section. In any other event that's coming in, take a look at what's generating the event to see if the information is actually getting through. We might also be seeing a database issue where the record of the video archive is not present in the database, so the Security Center will not be aware of the video file on the storage device. So to test this, we should schedule a non-peak time to bring down the archiver and try creating a new database with a different name. Just remember to use a different database name so we don't overwrite the existing one in case it's not actually a database problem. If everything records fine with the new database, the most efficient solution to be able to see the video files is to run an orphan file search and re-index the files. Now, to find out how to run an orphan file search, take a look at Knowledge Base article number 745. Now, a common configuration step that is missed sometimes is to set the minimum free space for the drives. If Security Center doesn't have enough free space set on the drive, it may have trouble efficiently cleaning up the drive, and it might be filling up. Generally, we recommend 0.2% of the drive should be free, or 2 gigabytes per terabyte, but for larger drives this can be lowered to a more reasonable value, as long as it's got enough space to move and delete files. Now, to check the minimum space, you go into the archiver role, take a look under the Resources tab, and check the value next to the drive here. For the next couple of steps, we're going to take a look at the archiver logs, or the events coming in for the archiver. If we're seeing the archiving stopped or recording stopped events, the best course of action is to restart the Genetec server service. For transmission lost or RTP packet loss messages, take a look at the CPU usage of the server hosting the archiver role, and take a look at the network usage as well. For a standalone archiver, which is one without a directory server running, the CPU usage must be less than 60% on average, and we shouldn't be exceeding 300 megabits per second of total network throughput. If you're seeing gaps in the video, take a look in the logs for archiving queue full messages. This means that some part of the archiving process is not able to handle all the information that's being passed to it, and some of it is being dropped. This can be anything from the network capacity, the speed of the storage device, or the CPU on the archiver not being able to process the data before the next batch of data comes in. You can try lowering the number of cameras that are recording and lowering the resolution and frame rate of the cameras to see if this helps bring the data load down to a level that the archiver can process. Now, in the situation where it's only one camera that's not recording, try to remove the unit, but you can keep the video and then add the unit back in again. It may start recording once the archiver reestablishes the connection with the unit. If the gaps are not in the middle of the videos, but the videos are not being kept, we're possibly trying to keep more video than our retention period will allow. So basically, you're expecting 15 days of video on the system, but you're consistently missing the last 5 days. You've only got the 10 most recent days. Now, take a look at the camera manufacturers' websites to see if they have a storage calculator, and consider how much you're recording and how often you're recording. So typically, there's something where you can enter a value, such as if you're recording on motion or you're recording continuously, and how much motion you're seeing as well. The storage calculator can then take that and the amount of time that you want to actually keep the video and give you a value of how much storage space you'll need for that time period for that one particular camera. It really depends on the manufacturer. The best thing to look at is the actual websites for the manufacturers themselves, and you can just do a total based on the cameras if you have mixed brand units on your system. Now, if you see a file deleted event in the archiver logs, basically you're seeing this because the archiver had to do an emergency cleanup to be able to keep enough space to store new video. Now, you're either going to have to reduce the amount of video that's being stored, reduce the quality so it records less information, or add storage to the existing system. The other option, of course, is move some cameras off that archiver and put them on a new archiver, or one that doesn't have quite as much of a load. Now, just note that we should always be trying to allow the archiver to clean up on a retention period. If the archiver needs to do this emergency cleanup due to being out of storage space, this takes a lot more resources on the archiver and it's not as efficient. Alright, so our last step is to take a look at some of the motion detection settings that can cause video issues, particularly with recording. Now, as we mentioned, if we're trying to record on motion but nothing is being archived, it may be that the events are not getting through. Motion events are generated based on the level of motion passing a certain level on the system. So if the level of motion never passes through one of the thresholds, we won't get any events. So, for example, if we have a motion on threshold set at 25% and a motion off threshold set to 10%, we need the level of motion to pass 25%, like it does right here, before the motion on event will be triggered. Similarly, the motion has to pass down below the 10% before the motion off event is triggered. Now, if you're seeing a level of motion that's constantly above the motion on threshold, you're never going to get an event, and you're never going to know that there's motion. So if you're seeing motion in the actual video, if you're watching the live video and you're seeing motion, but you're not seeing those motion on events come in, take a look at the thresholds. As well, you should never have them set too close to each other or set too low. If you have everything set too low, then the motion may constantly be above it. If they're set too close together, then you're never going to see any difference between the two. Too much rapid changes aren't good for it as well. Now, also concerning the motion configuration, we want to check the sensitivity. Now, this is basically saying how much noise to block out. There's our sensitivity setting right there. Now, the higher value we have set here, the less noise it will block out and the more sensitive to changes it will be. Having this value set too high may cause a lot of false positives. Now, a good tip here is to start with a high value and slowly lower it until you're only getting a few false blocks showing up in the test view here. Now those will be compensated for by the thresholds. If you've got it set too low, it means that you're going to miss motion as it won't pick up the actual movement, so don't go too far down here. As we had mentioned earlier, make sure the firewall or antivirus is not blocking any ports, or the motion events will not come through, particularly when the motion detection is being done at the unit level, which is basically using hardware motion detection. Along those lines, we can also try to flip between hardware and software motion detection to see if one works better than the other in our whatever particular situation that we're looking at. One new thing in Security Center 5.1 is something called the learning mode, which is right down here. You see the little light bulb here. Now you can turn that on to have the current scene analyzed and the settings configured according to what it sees. So basically you want to leave that on until you have a good representation of your common motion in the current view. So if you want to test your, if you want to try using the learning mode, and it's usually looking at a busy subway station, turning that on at 1 o'clock in the morning is maybe not the best idea. You want to turn it on when you're most likely to see your most motion or your average motion, sometime during rush hour or lunchtime perhaps. Now it may not get the exact settings for you, but at least that would be a good starting point to tweak from. Now we've seen a few issues with motion detection on H.264 streams in the past due to the sensitivity. For some tips on additional advanced settings to configure when using the H.264, take a look at Knowledge Base article number 762. Basically what you're going to see in there, there's some advanced settings that we can set up that may help with the detection and actually get it to see more of the object that's actually in the frame. Alright, so that concludes the webinar for today. We're going to leave the session active for about another 10 minutes or so in case you have any additional questions for us. And in case you want to review the webinar at any point, we're going to have the video posted on the GTAP in the next couple of days. If you have any comments or feedback on the webinar, we'd love to hear it. When you close the webinar session, you're going to be presented with a short survey. Now, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could just take a minute to drop a few comments in there. If you think of anything you'd like to ask or you have any other comments, you can just leave those in the GTAC Tech Talk section of the GTAP forum. And we'll also have the general questions and answers from today's webinar, as well as the links to the videos posted in the forum within the next couple of days. So once again, I'd like to thank you very much for attending our GTAC Tech Talk webinar, and we hope you all have a great day.